We're going to begin this exercise in a little bit different place. We will steer to the shared folders, and within shared folders, go to the params directory. But within the parameters directory, we're going to take a look at our solution to begin with. Within solutions, we're going to be looking at the param navigation solution. Note within param navigation, we have high level, a donut chart, and we have details, which is a pivot table that drills down for sales from category to subcategory. And if we drill down a little bit further, you're going to see segment. This is all utilizing the global superstore data set. Notice on the details page, we have a parameter control that allows me to select all or any one of the members of the parameter or of the category dimension, such as furniture, office supplies, and technology. As I'm selecting on the different choices, notice that I also have a filter-like control called subcategory that is updating. So if I select plus all, you're going to see all of the subcategories. If I select furniture, well, then I'll just see the subcategories that are associated with furniture. This is actually not a filter. This is a table acting as a filter. Going back to high level, if I click on a segment of this donut chart, let's say like technology, notice that I have an option that says navigate to details. So if I click on navigate to details, that will take me to the detail sheet and actually deploy filtering so that I'm filtered to whatever I clicked on. In this case, I clicked on the technology segment of that donut chart. So I'm filtered to only see technology within the pivot table, and also technology within the param control. And also notice that the subcategories are only going to show those subcategories that are associated with the category in the Superstore dataset. Well, let's go to the starters file now. So navigating back to the home page, which I did by clicking on the Amazon Quick Suite logo at the top, I'm going to navigate to shared folders. And within shared folders, click on the quick site number, whatever your user number is, parameters directory, and go into starter params. And I'll be looking at the param navigation starter. So here's our high-level donut chart. I don't need to do anything with this just yet. Here's the detail sheet, and I do need to do some work in the detail sheet. So let's get started on that. I'll begin by clicking on the parameters icon within the toolbar to bring up the parameters panel. And within the parameters panel, I'll select add. I'm going to create a parameter called cat param. The data type, the string, values, single value, and enter value, that is for the static default, I'm going to put plus all. The reason why I'm putting a plus sign is because parameters choices will be listed out alphabetically. So I want all to go to the top. So I'm putting a plus there to force it to go to the top alphabetically. I'll click on create. And within the resulting window, I'm going to click on the calculated field option to bring up the calculated field dialog box. I'm going to call the calculation cat param calc, and the calculation will be this if statement. So let's think about this if statement. If else, cat param equals plus all. So imagine that the end user within the parameter control selects the plus all, then we're setting a value of 1. On the other hand, let's say that the end user chooses furniture. So cat param equals furniture. Then we're setting a value of 1. But for technology or for office supplies, that is the other categories that we saw listed, those will not be equal to 1. And the way this will look when we build out the rest of the interface is if the end user chooses plus all, then all the categories will display because 1 is true for everything. However, if the end user chooses only one category, let's say, for example, furniture, then 1 is only true for furniture, and therefore only furniture would display because the value that's associated with technology or with office supplies, that is the other categories, is a null value. It is not 1. I'll click on save. And then let's add a filter to this detail sheet. So I need to ensure that the pivot table is selected, which it is. And then in the toolbar, I'm going to click on that filter icon. So that brings up the filter panel. And within the filter panel, I'll just click on plus add. I'm going to add the cat param calc that we just created. Okay, so let me expand this by clicking on cat param calc. And in the filter configuration, notice at the top, there is an applied to section. And under the applied to section, I can apply to a single visual, I can apply to a single sheet, I can apply to all sheets within the analysis. I'm going to click on the second one, the single sheet option. Now, under enter a value, I'm going to select the number 1, because remember, in our calculated field, we were setting values to 1. That's it. I'm just going to leave this, all the other selections as default, and click apply. And now let's return to the parameters panel by clicking on that parameters icon. And within the parameters panel, I'm going to interact with the cat param parameter, and I'll select the kebab menu associated with that. And in the kebab menu, I have add control. So I'm going to add a control, and I'm going to configure this as follows. This will be cat param control, and the style will be set to list. So that gives me specific values, and then I need to define those values. And these will just be hard-coded. In other words, I need to type these in, plus all, and then each one of the categories that are represented within the category dimension, that is furniture, office supplies, and technology. I'm going to hide the search bar when the control is on the sheet, and I need to hide the select all option since I'm building my own select all option with the plus all that's located here within my defined specific values. Now I'm going to click on add, and notice that in the top of the sheet, I have a drop down for that cat param control. I'm going to click on that drop down, and this might be a little bit difficult to see, but if you hover over the cat param control, you're going to notice a kebab menu in the upper right-hand corner, and that's what I want to interact with. Again, as you hover over the cat param control, you'll see that kebab menu. I'll select on the kebab menu and select move inside the sheet. So this is going to make hopefully a fairly intuitive, interactive experience for my end user. So now I'm going to activate the visuals pane by clicking on the visuals icon in the toolbar. Of course, you'll notice the resulting visuals pane. And here I'm going to choose to add another visual. So I'll click on add, and I'm going to define this as a table. And the table is going to have subcategory in it. Now, you may be ahead of me at this point and already realize that this table is actually going to be acting as a filter on the visualization. I'm going to take a little bit of time here to format this so that it's a bit more appropriate for our purposes here, and it looks a little bit more like a filter. You can format this however you want, but let me just quickly run through some things and get this set up. Okay, so notice that I've formatted filter subcategory so that there are no borders. The only title that displays is filter subcategory, and I don't have any shading for alternate rows, simply a listing. The idea is to make that look more like a filter. All right, next, with the filter subcategory table selected, I'm going to click on the Interactions tab within Properties, expand Actions, and Add Action. Now, as it turns out, the defaults here are just fine. I don't need to change anything. I could, of course, name the action and make whatever other changes I want, but I'm just going to click on Save, and that's it. Now, when I interact with Filter Subcategory by clicking on Filter Subcategory, you'll see that it is changing what we see within our pivot table. You'll also note that the cat param control impacts both the details sheet and the Filter Subcategory table. Now it's time to move to the High Level tab. After I ensure that the donut chart is selected, I'm going to navigate to the Properties page, that is the Properties panel, and then select the Interactions tab within the Properties panel. I'll expand Actions and then click on Add Action. Now this action I am going to need to configure. Let's name this Navigate to Details. For the activation, I'll select a menu option, and for the action type, I'll select navigation action. And for target sheets, that will be the details sheet. That is the sheet that we were just working on underneath that details tab. Now, don't click on save yet. Instead, click on the plus sign next to parameters. So the parameter that we set up was cat param. I'm going to set the parameter value to be field category, and then click on add. Next, I'll click on Save. Now, what this allows us to do is to put as a part of the tooltip within each segment of our donut chart a Navigate option. So notice that I have Navigate to Details. And since I just clicked on Technology, the Navigate to Details will be associated with technology. So that means that the detail sheet will be filtered by technology, as we can see within the pivot table and also within the cat param control and also within the filter subcategory table, because you can see that the subcategories that are showing are only those subcategories that apply to technology. In this case, our accessories, our copiers, machines, and phones. If I click on all, you're going to see that we're back to seeing everything, and I can go back and forth between high-level details, test the other options, and note the interactivity.